My name is Stephanie Walker, and I am 34 years old. For 12 years, I have been the quality control specialist who kept RapidTech manufacturing running smoothly. My meticulous checklists were our backbone until Trevor, our new 25-year-old manager, mocked them publicly. This is something from a 1950s. Secretary, he laughed, tossing my clipboard into the trash. 1 week later, our $3 million per day production line shut down completely. When our CEO Richard walked straight to the trash can, pulled out my clipboard, and turned to Trevor with cold fury in his eyes, I knew justice was coming. But I never expected what happened next. If you are watching this video, let me know where you are tuning in from in the comments below, and please hit that like and subscribe button if you want to hear more stories about workplace justice. My journey at RapidTech Manufacturing began 12 years ago when I was just 22, fresh out of college, with a degree in industrial engineering and eager to prove myself. I started as an entry-level quality inspector, examining components as they came off the assembly line, checking measurements, and ensuring specifications were met. It was detailed work that required focus and precision qualities that have always come naturally to me. RapidTech Manufacturing is not just any factory. We produce critical components for medical devices, parts that go into equipment that doctors rely on to save lives. Our precision instruments are used in everything from dialysis machines to surgical robots. One small defect could mean the difference between a successful procedure and a catastrophic failure. This reality has always weighed on me, giving purpose to even the most mundane inspections. During my second year, we faced a serious quality crisis. 3 consecutive shipments to our biggest client contained defective pressure sensors, resulting in a recall that cost the company nearly $2 million and damaged our reputation. I remember the tense meetings, the late nights trying to identify where our process had broken down. It was during this crisis that I recognized a pattern. Our quality issues stemmed not from individual mistakes, but from inconsistent inspection procedures. Over the next several months, I developed a comprehensive checklist system. It started small, just my personal notes to ensure I checked everything in the same order every time. I color-coded sections by department, created visual indicators for critical failure points, and added timestamp sections to track how long each process should take. My supervisor noticed my error rate dropping to nearly 0 and asked about my methods. When I showed him my checklist system, he was impressed enough to allow me to implement it with the other quality inspectors. Within 3 months, our department-wide error rate dropped by 78%. By the end of that year, I was promoted to Senior Quality Specialist and given the authority to refine and expand the system company-wide. Gary Thompson was the production manager who championed my work. A veteran of manufacturing with 30 years of experience, Gary understood the value of institutional knowledge and methodical processes. Stephanie, he told me once, in manufacturing flashy innovations, get the headlines, but it is consistent quality that builds a reputation. Under his mentorship, I continued to develop and refine our quality control systems. Over the following 7 years, my checklist system evolved into a comprehensive quality management protocol. Each production line had customized inspection points. Each component type had specific testing parameters. Each shift had accountability measures built in to ensure nothing fell through the cracks. The results spoke for themselves. RapidTech grew from a mid-sized manufacturer to an industry leader, with daily production valued at $3 million. Our success attracted attention. Last year, a larger medical technology conglomerate, Medcore Industries, acquired us. The acquisition came with promises of greater resources and market expansion, but also with the inevitable corporate restructuring. Gary announced his retirement 3 months after the acquisition, and the search for his replacement began. I still remember the day Trevor Maxwell was introduced as our new production manager. At 25 years old, with an MBA from an elite business school, he radiated confidence and ambition. His presentation to the staff was filled with buzzwords like agile methodology, lean manufacturing principles, and digital transformation. He had theories and case studies, but no actual manufacturing experience. From our first interaction, Trevor made it clear he saw the longtime staff as obstacles rather than assets. We need to break away from outdated thinking, he announced in his first team meeting. Medcore did not invest in RapidTech to maintain the status quo. Several of my colleagues exchanged worried glances, but nobody spoke up. Change was expected with new ownership, and nobody wanted to appear resistant. I tried to work with Trevor despite his condescending attitude. During his first week, I prepared a comprehensive overview of our quality control systems, complete with data showing the correlation between our checklist implementations and decreased error rates. He glanced at my presentation for less than 5 minutes before sliding it back across the table. "This is all very analog," he said with a slight smirk. "We need to digitize and streamline these processes. Too many manual checkpoints slow down production." "The physical checks are essential for certain components," I explained. "Our optical sensors need tactile testing that automated systems might miss." Trevor leaned back in his chair. "Every process can be improved, Stephanie. Your methods might have worked in the past, but we are moving into the future now." The meeting ended with Trevor assigning me to work with the IT department on digitizing our quality protocols, effectively sidelining the system I had spent years perfecting. As I gathered my materials, I noticed him already typing an email my concerns dismissed before I had even left the room. Maria Rodriguez, another quality specialist who had been with the company for 8 years, caught up with me in the hallway afterward. "That did not go well," she observed, her expression sympathetic. "He did not even look at the data," I replied, frustration evident in my voice. 7 years of proven results, and he dismissed it in 5 minutes. "The new ones always want to make their mark," Maria said. "Give him time to see how things actually work here." Robert Chen, our line supervisor with 15 years at RapidTech, was more direct when I spoke with him later. "This kid thinks manufacturing is like a computer simulation from business school," he muttered. "Wait until he faces his first real production crisis." Susan Harris from HR noticed the tension developing between the experienced staff and Trevor. During a casual lunch, she confided, "I am concerned about his approach. Dismissing institutional knowledge is rarely good for morale or operations. If you have any serious issues, my door is always open." I appreciated the support, but still hoped to find common ground with Trevor. After all, some of his ideas about digital tracking had merit, and I was not opposed to modernizing our systems where it made sense. Perhaps a blended approach could work, combining the reliability of my checklists with the efficiency of digital tools. With that in mind, I spent a weekend refining my color-coded checklist system to make it more compatible with potential digital integration. Red sections highlighted critical safety components. Blue marked precision requirements. Green indicated material quality checks. Yellow flagged assembly sequence verification. Purple denoted final functionality tests. Each section included specific parameters and acceptable tolerances. This system had prevented countless potential failures over the years, saving the company millions in potential recalls and preserving our reputation for excellence. It represented not just my work, but the collective wisdom of our experienced production team. What I did not realize then was how quickly all of that was about to be dismissed. Our weekly quality review meeting was scheduled for Thursday morning, with all department heads present. These meetings were important forums to address emerging issues and implement improvements before small problems became major ones. I had spent extra hours preparing for this particular meeting, knowing it would be Trevor's first time attending as the new production manager. My presentation included recent findings about a slight deviation in material consistency from one of our suppliers and a proposed modification to our inspection protocol to catch the issue earlier in the production process. I had data samples and a clear implementation plan ready. This was exactly the kind of proactive quality management that had made RapidTech successful. The conference room was nearly full when I arrived 5 minutes early to set up. Department heads from engineering, purchasing, and customer service were already seated around the large oval table. Robert gave me an encouraging nod as I connected my laptop to the projector. Maria slipped in just as I was arranging sample components on the side table. Trevor arrived exactly on time, dressed in a crisp, button-down shirt and designer slacks that seemed out of place on a factory production floor. He took the seat at the head of the table, a position Gary had always left open, preferring to sit among the team rather than above them. "Let's make this efficient, people," Trevor announced without preamble. "We have production targets to meet." As the most senior quality specialist, I was scheduled to present first. I had barely introduced the topic when Trevor interrupted. "Can we get to the actionable items?" he asked, glancing at his smartwatch. "The background can go in the email summary." "The material context is important for understanding the proposed changes," I explained, trying to maintain my professional composure. Just give us the bottom line, Trevor insisted. What changes are you suggesting and how will they affect our production speed? I continued my presentation, condensing sections as I went increasingly aware of Trevor's impatient sighs and the uncomfortable atmosphere developing in the room. When I reached the section about implementing additional inspection points for the affected components, Trevor interrupted again. More inspections, that adds time to the production cycle, he objected, frowning at my slides. We should be streamlining these processes, not adding steps. These checks would prevent defective components from progressing through production, I countered. They actually save time by reducing rework and returns. Trevor stood up and walked to the front of the room. May I see your materials? He asked, though it was not really a question. He took my clipboard from the podium where I had placed it. What exactly am I looking at here? He asked, flipping through my carefully organized pages with obvious disdain. That is our comprehensive quality control checklist, I replied. Each section corresponds to different production phases and component types. Trevor held up the clipboard, displaying the color-coded pages to the room. This is your sophisticated quality system. He gave a theatrical laugh that made my stomach tighten. Color coding and manual checklists. Several of the newer employees smiled nervously. The veteran staff looked uncomfortable, eyes darting between Trevor and me. The system has proven effective for 7 years, I said, keeping my voice steady. Our quality metrics demonstrate that. Trevor flipped through more pages, his expression increasingly mocking. Daily sign-offs, handwritten notes. This is something from a 1950s secretary, he declared loudly, triggering nervous laughter from some of the junior staff eager to align themselves with the new manager. Then came the moment that would play over in my mind for weeks afterward. Trevor dramatically held the clipboard over the large trash can beside the presentation table. We are moving to a streamlined digital approach, he announced, dropping my work into the bin with a thud. One focused on speed and efficiency, not paperwork. The room fell silent. I stood frozen at the podium, my face burning with humiliation. 12 years of dedicated work dismissed and discarded in front of my colleagues. The physical pain in my chest surprised me, as if something had actually broken inside. Now Trevor continued, seemingly oblivious to the tension he had created. Let me show you the new quality tracking dashboard I have been developing with IT. He launched into his presentation about a digital system that prioritized production speed and simplified quality checks. His system eliminated many of the detailed inspections my checklist had included, particularly the hands-on testing that had caught numerous subtle defects over the years. As Trevor spoke, I quietly returned to my seat, aware of sympathetic glances from some colleagues and awkward avoidance from others. Maria subtly passed me a note. He is wrong. This will backfire. The small gesture of solidarity helped me maintain my composure through the remainder of the meeting. When the meeting ended, I waited until most people had left before approaching the trash can to retrieve my clipboard. Trevor noticed and blocked my path. Leave it, he said quietly, his tone suddenly serious rather than mocking. We are moving forward with the new system. I need you on board with this change, Stephanie. The old ways are holding this company back. Those checklists contain critical quality protocols, I replied, struggling to keep the emotion from my voice. Some of those inspection points cannot be replaced with digital scans. Your resistance to change is exactly the kind of attitude we need to phase out, Trevor said, his expression hardening. I have been brought in to modernize operations, and that is what I am going to do. Get with the program or get left behind. He walked away, leaving me standing beside the trash can containing years of my professional work. After a moment's hesitation, I left the clipboard where it was. This battle would not be won by confrontation. The painful walk back to my desk felt endless. Whispers followed me through the production floor, the news of the meeting already spreading. Some colleagues avoided eye contact, while others offered sympathetic looks. My authority and expertise, built over 12 years, had been publicly undermined in less than 30 minutes. Maria found me at my desk an hour later, organizing files with mechanical precision as I struggled to process what had happened. That was unprofessional and disrespectful, she said, placing a cup of coffee beside my keyboard. Everyone with actual manufacturing experience knows he is making a mistake. It does not matter what they know if nobody speaks up, I replied. Give it time, Maria advised. These hotshot types usually crash when theory meets reality. The question is how much damage they do before that happens. Later that afternoon, I attempted to speak with Trevor privately, hoping to find some compromise that would preserve the most critical elements of our quality system. I knocked on his office door with a modified proposal in hand. "Do you have a minute to discuss the quality protocols?" I asked. Trevor barely looked up from his computer. "If this is about the old checklists, we have moved past that. The digital system launches next week." "I understand we are modernizing," I said carefully, "but there are certain physical inspections that digital scans cannot replace." Stephanie, Trevor replied with exaggerated patience. "Your attachment to the old system is clouding your judgment. Change is difficult, I understand that. But your resistance is coming across as insubordination." "This is not about resistance to change," I insisted. "It is about maintaining quality standards that protect our reputation and our customers." Trevor finally looked directly at me. "Let me be clear. The new system is being implemented. Period. Your options are to support these changes or reconsider whether RapidTech is still the right place for you." The threat was thinly veiled but unmistakable. I had a mortgage, car payments, and my mother's medical bills to consider. Walking away from my job was not a simple option. As I left Trevor's office, the weight of professional helplessness settled over me. For the first time in my career, I wondered if my days at RapidTech were numbered. Monday morning brought the official implementation of Trevor's new efficiency-focused system. Our quality control department received tablets with the digital checklist app significantly streamlined compared to our previous protocols. The training session lasted just 45 minutes, with Trevor proudly emphasizing how much time would be saved by eliminating redundant inspection points. By Tuesday afternoon, I noticed the first quality issues during my line inspections. A batch of pressure valve components showed slight inconsistencies in the sealing mechanism, something my checklist would have flagged for additional testing. Under the new system, these parts passed the digital inspection because the deviation fell within the broadly defined acceptable parameters Trevor had programmed. I documented the issue despite being told to strictly follow the new digital process. Taking one of the questionable valves to the testing lab, I confirmed my suspicions. Under sustained pressure, the seal would eventually fail. Not immediately, but much sooner than our quality standards permitted. "Trevor should see this," Robert said when I showed him the test results. "This is exactly the kind of subtle defect your old inspection process would catch." I emailed Trevor with the findings, attaching the test data and images of the defective components. His response was brief and dismissive. "Parts are within the new tolerance parameters. No action required." 3 days later, the first batch of customer complaints arrived. A medical equipment manufacturer reported inconsistent performance from our pressure regulators, requiring them to implement additional testing on their end before using our components. Trevor's response was to call an emergency team meeting, but not to address the quality issue as I had hoped. "We have reports that production staff are deviating from the new inspection protocols," he announced, scanning the room with a stern expression. "Some people are performing unauthorized additional tests and creating unnecessary documentation." His eyes fixed on me. "This undermines our efficiency goals and sends mixed messages to our clients. All inspections must follow the digital protocol exactly as designed, with no unauthorized additions." I raised my hand, determined to address the issue professionally. "We have received quality complaints that correlate directly to the inspection points that were removed," I stated, keeping my voice calm and factual. "The customer feedback validates the concerns some of us raised about the new system." Trevor's expression hardened. "The complaints represent a normal adjustment period as we transition systems. They are not cause for reverting to outdated methods." With respect, I persisted. "The specific issues being reported are exactly what my previous checklist system was designed to catch." "Your previous system," Trevor replied with unmistakable condescension, "was unnecessarily complex and inefficient. The current issues are being addressed through software updates, not by returning to manual paperwork." He moved on to the next agenda item, effectively shutting down any further discussion. As the meeting ended, several colleagues avoided making eye contact with me, clearly uncomfortable with the tension but unwilling to risk their own positions by speaking up. Robert caught up with me in the hallway afterward. "He is covering his tracks," he muttered, glancing around to ensure no one could overhear. "The quality issues are worse than he is admitting, but he has already promised senior management that his new system would increase production speed by 20%. How bad is it really? I asked. Robert ran a hand through his graying hair. Bad enough that my team is implementing unofficial workarounds. We are doing additional checks after hours and fixing issues before they ship, but we cannot catch everything. The information disturbed me but did not surprise me. Document everything, I advised him. Someday someone will need to know what really happened. Taking my own advice, I started keeping a secret backup log of all the quality issues I observed, complete with timestamps, batch numbers, and detailed descriptions. I stored this documentation securely in a private cloud account away from company servers where Trevor might discover it. The workplace atmosphere grew increasingly tense over the following days. Production staff received conflicting instructions as Trevor and his supporters pushed for speed, while experienced employees tried to maintain quality standards through unofficial channels. Arguments erupted on the production floor. Blame was assigned for mistakes that would have been prevented under the previous system. By the end of the second week, I seriously considered resigning. The stress was affecting my sleep, my health, and my peace of mind. I had built a career on professional integrity and quality standards, and watching those standards being systematically dismantled was taking a personal toll. That Saturday, I met my sister Allison for lunch at our favorite cafe, seeking perspective from someone outside the situation. Just quit, she suggested after listening to my frustrated account. Life is too short to fight unwinnable battles. There are other manufacturing companies that would value your experience. It is not that simple, I replied, stirring my coffee absently. RapidTech makes components for medical equipment. People's lives depend on what we produce. If quality fails, the consequences go far beyond business metrics. Allison studied me for a moment. You have always been like this, you know. Even as a kid, you could never walk away from something when you believed you were right. Is that a character flaw? I asked with a weak smile. No, she said thoughtfully. It is what makes you good at what you do, but it also means you take on burdens that are not always yours to carry. By Sunday evening, I had made my decision. I would not resign, at least not yet. Professional ethics and personal pride demanded that I stay and document the situation even if I could not immediately change it. I updated my resume as a contingency but committed to seeing this through. Monday morning, I returned to work with renewed determination. If I could not prevent the quality decline through official channels, I would at least ensure there was a record of what happened and why. Someone eventually would need to understand the root causes when the consequences became impossible to ignore. I was not alone in my concerns. A small coalition of experienced staff had formed, sharing observations and documenting issues. Maria from quality control, Robert from line supervision, Frank from engineering, and even Susan from HR privately expressed their worries about the direction things were heading. We have had 3 customer complaints this week about inconsistent power supply components. Frank informed me quietly during a coffee break. Trevor is blaming it on the client's testing equipment, but our own data shows the variance. He rejected my request for additional material testing equipment, Maria added. Said it was unnecessary overhead that would slow down the production cycle. Susan looked troubled. I am hearing rumors that senior management is concerned about the sudden increase in customer issues, but Trevor is presenting it as a temporary adjustment period. He is very convincing in those executive meetings. How long before someone above him realizes what is happening? I asked. Robert shook his head grimly. The question is how much damage will be done before that happens. At $3 million of daily production, even a small quality issue becomes expensive very quickly. None of us realized just how soon that question would be answered or how dramatically the situation would unfold. The morning of what would later be known throughout the company as Black Thursday began like any other. I arrived at 6:30 a.m. 15 minutes before my shift officially started, a habit formed over years of taking pride in my work. The production floor hummed with the familiar sounds of machinery as the night shift prepared to hand over operations to the day crew. Something felt off immediately. The main assembly line operators were huddled in conversation, their expressions concerned, as they reviewed digital readouts. Moving closer, I overheard fragments about calibration issues and inconsistent measurements. What is happening? I asked Jim, one of our most experienced operators. The calibration keeps drifting on the main assembly robots, he explained, pointing to the fluctuating numbers on his monitor. Started around 4 a.m. We have adjusted 3 times, but it keeps reverting to incorrect settings. Under my old system, calibration checks occurred at specific intervals with physical verification, not just digital readings. The new protocol had extended these intervals and eliminated the manual verification step to save time. Have you notified Trevor? I asked. Jim nodded grimly. He said to apply the software patch IT sent over and keep production moving, but the patch does not seem to be fixing the underlying issue. As the morning progressed, the calibration problems triggered a cascade of technical issues throughout the production line. Conveyor timing became misaligned. Assembly robots missed connection points by fractions of millimeters, creating weak joints. Inspection cameras failed to detect these subtle flaws because their parameters had been set too broadly under the new system. By 9:15 a.m., machine operators were struggling without clear protocols for addressing the compounding problems. The production floor became chaotic as supervisors gave contradictory instructions, some following Trevor's digital system, while others attempted to implement emergency measures based on experience. Trevor arrived at 9:30 a.m., having missed the early signs of trouble. His reaction was immediate and counterproductive, demanding increased speed to make up for lost production time, even as quality issues multiplied. Reset the line and restart at full capacity, he ordered, overriding the concerns of the floor supervisors. We have production targets to meet. The calibration issue is not resolved, Robert protested. Increasing speed now will only compound the problems. The software update should have fixed that, Trevor insisted. If operators are properly following the new protocols, the system will self-correct. His confidence might have been admirable if it had not been so dangerously misplaced. Within 30 minutes of his intervention, the situation deteriorated further. Components jammed in the automated handling system. Assembly robots continued working despite the jam damaging both the stuck parts and their own precision mechanisms. Trevor began issuing a stream of increasingly panicked and contradictory instructions as issues multiplied. Increase inspection sensitivity, he ordered at one point, only to demand faster throughput regardless of minor variations. 20 minutes later, when the enhanced sensitivity flagged too many components for review, the breaking point came at 11:22 a.m. A critical maintenance check on the main hydraulic system had been scheduled in my old checklist system, but deemed redundant under Trevor's streamlined approach. Without this regular inspection, metal shavings had accumulated in the hydraulic fluid, eventually causing catastrophic failure under pressure. The sound was deafening, a mechanical shriek followed by the hiss of high-pressure fluid escaping. Emergency shutdowns activated throughout the connected systems, bringing the entire $3 million per day production line to a grinding halt. Warning lights flashed across all monitoring stations as the facility's alarm systems activated. Everyone remain calm and follow emergency protocols. Robert's voice came through the PA system, a steady presence amid the chaos. Engineering team to the main hydraulic system. All other personnel, please move to designated safety areas. Trevor's face had gone pale as he stared at the main production floor from the elevated observation platform. What just happened? He demanded, turning to the nearest technician. Hydraulic system failure, the technician replied grimly. Looks like a pressure spike blew the main seals and damaged the pump assembly. How long to repair? Trevor asked, already reaching for his phone. The technician shook his head. Hours at minimum. Maybe all day, if the pump needs replacement. That is not acceptable, Trevor snapped. We need to be operational by the afternoon shift. While Trevor frantically called technical support and yelled at various department heads, I joined the engineering team assessing the damage. The hydraulic failure had affected multiple connected systems, with secondary damage to assembly robots that had continued their programmed movements during the pressure loss. This is exactly the kind of cascade failure your maintenance checklist was designed to prevent, Frank from engineering muttered as we examined the contaminated hydraulic fluid. Those metal shavings should have been detected weeks ago during regular inspections. Word spread quickly that CEO Richard Hamilton and several executive vice presidents were on their way from the corporate office. Trevor, upon hearing this news, began a frantic attempt to construct a narrative that would protect his position. I watched as he pulled aside junior staff members, coaching them on what to say about the incident. emphasized that this was an unforeseeable equipment failure. I overheard him instructing a group of new hires. This could have happened under any management system. The claim was blatantly false, and judging by the expressions of the experienced staff nearby, I was not the only one who recognized it. This failure was entirely foreseeable and would have been prevented by the maintenance checks that Trevor had eliminated. My emotions were complicated as I prepared for the emergency meeting that had been called. On one level, I felt a grim vindication knowing my concerns had been valid. But that feeling was overshadowed by genuine concern for the company and frustration at the needless damage that had occurred. Maria found me in the quality control lab where I was gathering documentation of previous warnings we had submitted about the hydraulic system. "They are saying the CEO is furious," she informed me quietly. "Apparently, a major client called him directly about quality issues just yesterday, and now this happens." "Trevor will try to blame the equipment or the maintenance team," I replied, organizing my notes. "Will you speak up in the meeting?" Maria asked, her expression serious. I considered the question carefully. If asked directly, I will tell the truth. Otherwise, the facts should speak for themselves. As we walked toward the main conference room, Robert joined us, his expression grim. "Brace yourselves," he warned. "Trevor is in full self-preservation mode. He is already trying to position this as an equipment failure, rather than a process failure." The emergency meeting was scheduled for 1 p.m. in the largest conference room. By 12:55, the tension in the room was palpable as department heads and supervisors gathered, speaking in hushed tones. Trevor stood near the head of the table, attempting to project confidence, despite the occasional nervous adjustment of his tie. At precisely 1 p.m., CEO Richard Hamilton entered, accompanied by the Chief Operations Officer and several vice presidents. Unlike Trevor's business casual attire, Richard wore a shop floor appropriate button-down shirt and khakis, having clearly come prepared to inspect the production area personally. At 62, Richard had started his career on manufacturing floors before working his way up through the corporate ranks. His reputation for understanding the technical details of production was well known throughout the industry. This was not an executive who could be easily misled by management jargon or deflection. As the room fell silent, I realized we had reached the turning point. Everything that happened next would determine not just Trevor's future, but potentially the direction of the entire company. The gravity of the moment settled around us as Richard took his seat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable as he surveyed the assembled team. "Let us get straight to the facts," Richard began without preamble, his voice calm but authoritative. "I have a $3 million per day production line sitting idle and a client list that has been reporting quality concerns for the past 2 weeks. I need to understand exactly what happened, why it happened, and how we are going to fix it." His gaze swept the room, settling briefly on each person before moving to the next. When his eyes met mine, I saw something that surprised me. A flicker of recognition. Though we had never been formally introduced, I wondered if my reputation had somehow reached his level, or if he was simply assessing each person's reaction. "Mr. Maxwell," Richard continued, turning to Trevor as production manager, "please start by briefing us on the situation." Trevor stood, smoothing his shirt and adopting a confident posture that seemed increasingly at odds with the reality of the situation. "Thank you, sir," he began. "We experienced a mechanical failure in the main hydraulic system at approximately 11:20 this morning. The engineering team is currently implementing repairs, and we expect to resume partial production by tomorrow morning." Trevor launched into a presentation that carefully framed the shutdown as an unfortunate equipment malfunction rather than a process failure. He used technical jargon liberally occasionally, glancing at the executives to gauge their reaction. "The primary cause appears to be unexpected wear in the hydraulic pump components," Trevor continued, "possibly due to manufacturing defects in the replacement parts installed during the last scheduled maintenance." From the corner of my eye, I saw Frank from engineering shift uncomfortably. The hydraulic system had not received its scheduled maintenance under Trevor's new protocols, making his explanation not just misleading but factually incorrect. Richard listened without interruption, his expression neutral. When Trevor finished his initial explanation, the CEO began asking pointed questions. "What quality control measures were in place to monitor the hydraulic system?" Richard asked. Trevor hesitated briefly. "We have implemented a modernized quality control system that focuses on digital monitoring rather than manual inspections," he replied. "The system is designed to alert us to anomalies in pressure and flow rates. And did this system provide warnings before the failure? Richard pressed. There were some minor alerts, Trevor admitted, but they fell within the broader, acceptable parameters of our efficiency-focused approach. Richard's eyes narrowed slightly. What exactly does efficiency-focused approach mean in practical terms? It means we have streamlined inspection protocols to eliminate redundancies and optimize production speed. Trevor explained, his confident tone returning. The previous system was overly complex and created unnecessary bottlenecks. Robert, unable to contain himself any longer, spoke up. Sir, if I may, he interjected, the warnings were actually quite clear. They would have triggered immediate maintenance under our previous protocols. Richard turned his attention to Robert. And what were these previous protocols? We had a comprehensive checklist system, Robert explained, with specific maintenance inspections scheduled at regular intervals. The hydraulic system received weekly checks that would have detected the metal contamination before it caused damage. Why was this system changed? Richard asked. The room fell silent. Trevor shifted his weight from one foot to the other. The previous system was deemed inefficient. Trevor finally answered. It included many manual inspection points that slowed production. Richard leaned forward. Was there documented evidence that these inspections were unnecessary? Trevor hesitated again. The digital system was designed to capture the essential elements while eliminating redundancies. That does not answer my question, Richard stated flatly. Was there evidence that the previous inspection points were unnecessary? Or was that an assumption? Before Trevor could respond, Maria spoke up. Sir, we actually had extensive data showing the opposite. Each inspection point in the previous system was implemented in response to specific quality issues. The data demonstrated clear correlations between these inspections and our quality metrics. Richard's gaze sharpened with interest. And where would I find this data and the details of this previous system? Maria glanced briefly at me before responding. Stephanie Walker developed the system over several years. She has the most comprehensive understanding of how it worked and why each element was important. All eyes turned to me. I felt my heart rate accelerate, but kept my expression composed. Miss Walker, Richard addressed me directly. I would like to hear about this previous quality control system. The system was a comprehensive checklist protocol. I began keeping my tone professional and factual. It evolved over 7 years in response to specific quality challenges. Each production area had customized inspection points based on historical data and failure analysis. And this system was recently discontinued, Richard confirmed. Yes, I replied. Approximately 3 weeks ago. Richard turned back to Trevor. Was there a transition plan to ensure critical quality checks were maintained during the switch to the new system? Trevor's composure began to crack. We implemented comprehensive training on the new digital protocols. That is not what I asked, Richard said, his tone cooling noticeably. Were specific provisions made to maintain critical quality checks during the transition? The new system was designed to capture those checks automatically. Trevor insisted, though his voice had lost some of its confidence. Richard turned to the engineering team. In your professional assessment, would the previous inspection protocols have prevented today's failure? Frank nodded without hesitation. Absolutely. The weekly hydraulic system inspection would have detected the metal contamination weeks ago. It is a simple visual check that takes 5 minutes but catches exactly this type of issue. Richard's expression darkened. So a 5-minute inspection could have prevented a full day of lost production on a $3 million per day line. The implication hung heavily in the room. Trevor began to look visibly uncomfortable. I would like to see documentation of this previous system, Richard said. Where would I find that? The question was directed generally, but several eyes turned toward me again. The master checklist binders were kept in the quality control office, I explained. Each production area also had customized versions at their stations. Those have been collected, Trevor interjected quickly. As part of the digital transition, we centralized all documentation. Maria shook her head slightly. Actually, most of the physical checklists were discarded during the transition to the new system. Richard's eyebrows rose. Discarded. Before confirming, the new system was fully functional. We have digital backups of essential information, Trevor claimed. though I knew this to be only partially true. Many of the nuanced inspection points had been eliminated rather than digitized. Robert cleared his throat. Sir, there was one comprehensive version that contained all the protocols. It was thrown away during a department meeting, when the new system was announced. Thrown away, Richard repeated his tone, suggesting he could hardly believe what he was hearing. It was a symbolic gesture, Trevor explained quickly, to emphasize our commitment to modernization. A long silence followed this statement. Richard surveyed the room, his expression increasingly troubled. Where exactly was this document discarded, he finally asked. The question seemed odd until I realized its purpose. Richard wanted to know if any record of the previous system still existed. Maria pointed to the large recycling bin in the corner of the conference room. It was disposed of in that bin, sir, during the quality review meeting 3 weeks ago. And has that bin been emptied since then? Richard asked. The recycling service comes on Fridays, Susan from HR replied. Today is Thursday, so no, not yet. Whoa. What happened next would become legendary in company lore. Richard Hamilton, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, stood up, walked over to the recycling bin, and began methodically sorting through its contents. The room watched in stunned silence as he sifted through discarded reports and empty coffee cups. After a minute of searching, Richard straightened, holding a familiar clipboard with color-coded pages. My clipboard. My comprehensive quality control system that Trevor had so dramatically discarded. By some stroke of fortune, it had remained relatively intact among the papers. Richard returned to the table, placing the clipboard down carefully and beginning to review its contents. The room remained silent as he flipped through page after page, occasionally nodding to himself. Trevor stood frozen, his expression a mixture of shock and dawning horror. After several minutes of review, Richard looked up, his gaze settling directly on Trevor with chilling intensity. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees as the CEO's expression hardened. Mr. Maxwell, Richard said, his voice dangerously quiet. Would you care to explain why critical quality control protocols developed over 7 years were literally thrown in the trash as a symbolic gesture? Trevor's mouth opened and closed without producing words. For perhaps the first time since his arrival, he seemed completely at a loss. Furthermore, Richard continued, tapping the clipboard. Can you explain why the exact hydraulic system failure we experienced today is specifically addressed on page 17 with a detailed inspection protocol that would have prevented it? Entirely. The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Trevor's career at RapidTech Manufacturing balanced on the edge of that blade, and everyone in the room knew it. I believe the digital system would capture those checks more efficiently, Trevor finally managed. Based on what evidence? Richard pressed. Trevor had no answer. Richard turned away from Trevor, effectively dismissing him, and addressed me directly. Miss Walker, would you please explain your system to the room? In detail, if you would. As Trevor sank back into his chair, I stepped forward, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice, as I began to outline the quality control protocols I had developed over my years with the company. For the first time in weeks, people were actually listening. The color-coded system is organized by production area and risk level, I explained, turning the pages of the clipboard that now lay in the center of the conference table. Red sections indicate critical safety components where failure could cause injury or critical system malfunctions. Blue sections cover precision requirements essential for proper functioning. Green sections address material quality checks that impact longevity and reliability. Richard nodded, following along with evident interest. And the yellow and purple sections, he asked, noting the additional colors. Yellow flags assembly sequence verification points, I continued, where the order of operations can affect structural integrity. Purple denotes final functionality tests before components leave each production area. I moved to the specific page addressing hydraulic system maintenance. This weekly inspection protocol was implemented 3 years ago after a similar, though less severe, failure. It includes visual inspection of fluid clarity testing for metal particulates, pressure cycle testing, and seal inspection. The entire process takes approximately 20 minutes per week, but has prevented numerous potential failures. Richard studied the page carefully. And this inspection was eliminated in the new system. Yes, I confirmed. It was classified as redundant, because the digital sensors monitor pressure levels. However, pressure anomalies often appear only after contamination has already caused damage. The visual inspection catches problems before they affect performance. So the digital monitoring tells you when it is already failing, while the visual inspection prevents the failure in the first place, Richard summarized. Exactly. I nodded, relieved that he understood the distinction so clearly. Richard turned to the engineering team. Based on this inspection protocol, how quickly could you have addressed the contamination issue? Had it been caught during routine checks? Draining and replacing contaminated hydraulic fluid is a 2-hour maintenance procedure, Frank replied. Compared to the full day of downtime and potential equipment replacement we are now facing. Richard's expression grew increasingly stern as the magnitude of the unnecessary failure became clear. He turned his attention back to Trevor, who sat stiffly in his chair, eyes fixed on the table. Mr. Maxwell, Richard addressed him with cold formality. Your decisions have cost this company millions in lost production, potential equipment damage, and customer confidence. More concerning is your apparent dismissal of established quality protocols without proper evaluation or transition planning. Trevor attempted to defend himself. Sir, I was brought in to modernize operations and increase efficiency. The previous system was paper-based and— Stop! Richard interrupted, holding up his hand. Modernization does not mean discarding what works before ensuring the replacement is at least equally effective. Digital tools should enhance our processes, not replace proven safeguards for the sake of appearing progressive. Trevor fell silent, his face flushed with embarrassment. I would like to speak with you privately after this meeting, Richard told him in a tone that left little doubt about the seriousness of that forthcoming conversation. For now, please wait in your office. The dismissal was unmistakable. Trevor gathered his materials and left the room without further comment, his shoulders hunched in defeat. Once the door closed behind him, Richard turned back to the remaining team members. Now let us focus on solutions. Miss Walker, if we were to reinstate your quality control protocols immediately, how quickly could we implement them across production areas? The question caught me by surprise. After weeks of having my expertise dismissed, being asked for my professional opinion by the CEO felt almost surreal. The line supervisors are already familiar with the previous protocols, I replied after a moment's consideration. We could have the critical safety and precision checklists reinstated by tomorrow morning. The complete system could be fully implemented within 3 days. Make it happen, Richard directed. Work with IT to determine how these protocols can complement the digital system rather than being replaced by it. I want the best of both approaches. Yes, sir, I replied, a sense of vindication and responsibility settling over me simultaneously. For the next 2 hours, the meeting transformed into a focused problem-solving session. With Trevor's obstructive presence removed, the experienced production team quickly developed an action plan to restore critical quality checks while repairs on the hydraulic system proceeded. Robert outlined a schedule for implementing immediate corrective actions. Frank from engineering detailed the necessary repairs and maintenance procedures. Maria and I worked on prioritizing which quality checkpoints needed immediate reinstatement. Throughout the discussion, Richard remained engaged, asking insightful questions that demonstrated his manufacturing background. What we need, Richard observed toward the end of the meeting, is a system that preserves the proven quality controls while leveraging digital tools for efficiency and data analysis. Not one replacing the other, but both working in concert. This balanced perspective resonated with everyone in the room. It acknowledged the value of experience while still embracing appropriate modernization, the very approach I had hoped for when Trevor first arrived. As the meeting concluded, Richard asked me to stay behind. When the room had cleared, he studied me thoughtfully. How long have you been with RapidTech, Miss Walker? He asked. 12 years, I replied. I started as an entry-level quality inspector right after college. Richard nodded. And you developed this entire quality system. It evolved over time, I explained. Each element was added in response to specific challenges or failures we encountered. Many improvements came from suggestions by the production team. That is what makes it so valuable, Richard observed. It represents collective knowledge and experience, not just theoretical best practices. He tapped the clipboard thoughtfully. I owe you an apology on behalf of the company. Your expertise should have been respected, not dismissed. Sometimes, in our rush to modernize, we forget that there is no algorithm for years of hands-on experience. Thank you, sir, I replied, genuinely moved by the acknowledgement. I do believe in improvement and innovation. I just think it should build on what works rather than discarding it. Precisely, Richard agreed. Which is why I would like you to take on a new role. Effective immediately, I am appointing you as our new quality control director. You will report directly to me while we reassess the production management structure. The offer was so unexpected that for a moment I could not respond. From having my work literally thrown in the trash to a director-level position reporting to the CEO all within a few weeks, the reversal was almost difficult to process. Thank you for the opportunity I finally managed. I would be honored to accept. Good, Richard said with a satisfied nod. You will have full authority to reinstate the necessary quality protocols. Work with IT to integrate the valuable aspects of the digital system, but never compromise on quality for the sake of speed. As I left the conference room, the production floor was still in partial shutdown mode with maintenance crews working on the hydraulic system. But there was a different energy among the staff, a sense of relief and renewed purpose as word spread that the quality protocols were being reinstated. Maria was the first to congratulate me when I shared the news of my promotion. It is about time, she said with a warm smile. Finally, someone who understands that quality cannot be compromised is in charge. Robert was equally supportive. Best decision Richard could have made, he declared. The team will rally behind you, Stephanie. We all know your system works. That evening, as I stayed late to organize the reinstatement of quality protocols, I passed by Trevor's office. Through the glass wall, I could see him packing his personal items into a cardboard box, his expression somber. Though I had every reason to feel satisfaction at his downfall, what I felt instead was a complicated mixture of vindication and empathy. His ambition and theoretical knowledge had not prepared him for the practical realities of manufacturing, and he had lacked the humility to learn from those with experience. The next morning, Richard called an all-hands meeting to announce the changes. Trevor had been reassigned to an analytical role at a regional office effective immediately. I had been promoted to quality control director. And most importantly, a new integrated approach to quality management would be implemented, combining traditional expertise with appropriate technological enhancements. Yesterday's failure was regrettable, Richard told the assembled staff, but it has reminded us of an essential truth in manufacturing. There are no shortcuts to quality. Digital tools are valuable, but they cannot replace the human experience and judgment that comes from years on the production floor. As he introduced me as the new quality control director, the spontaneous applause from the production staff brought an unexpected lump to my throat. Their validation meant more than any title or promotion ever could. The road to recovery would not be simple or quick. Trust with customers needed to be rebuilt, production schedules required adjustment. Quality issues that had slipped through in recent weeks needed to be identified and addressed. But for the first time since Trevor's arrival, I felt confident that we were moving in the right direction. My first week as quality control director was both exhausting and exhilarating. With Richard's full support, I immediately reinstated the critical safety and precision checklists across all production areas. Line supervisors welcomed the return to proven protocols, and even newer employees who had initially been swayed by Trevor's modernization rhetoric quickly recognized the value of the structured approach. Richard did not just support the reinstatement of my quality control system, he went further, directing that it be implemented company-wide. Plants in other locations began receiving training on the protocols adapted for their specific production processes. What had begun as my personal solution to quality issues at one facility was now becoming a corporate standard. 3 weeks into my new role, I received an unexpected invitation to present our quality management approach at Medcor's quarterly leadership meeting. Standing before executives and directors from across the corporation was intimidating, but the recent crisis had given me a new confidence in the value of my expertise. Quality control is not about checking boxes, I explained to the assembled leadership team. It is about understanding the critical failure points in each process and creating systematic safeguards. The checklist is simply a tool to ensure consistency, but the knowledge behind each checkpoint is what truly matters. The presentation was well received, with several other facility managers requesting assistance in implementing similar systems. Richard, sitting in the front row, nodded approvingly throughout my talk. Afterward, he introduced me to several board members as the person who saved us millions by knowing exactly what not to change. In the months that followed, we developed a formal training program based on my approach to quality management. New employees were paired with experienced staff to understand not just what to check, but why each inspection point mattered. The color coding system was standardized across facilities, creating a common visual language for quality priorities. One morning, about 6 weeks after the crisis, I found an unexpected email in my inbox. The sender was Trevor Maxwell. "Stephanie," the message began. "I owe you an apology. My arrogance and ambition clouded my judgment, and I failed to respect the expertise you and others had developed over years of actual production experience. Business school taught me theories of efficiency, but not the reality of manufacturing where quality and safety cannot be compromised. I let you and the team down, and I am truly sorry for that. I have learned a difficult but necessary lesson about humility and respect for institutional knowledge. I wish you and the team continued success." The email surprised me with its apparent sincerity. Despite everything that had happened, I found myself appreciating that Trevor had taken responsibility for his mistakes. My response was brief but genuine. "Thank you for your message, Trevor. We all have learning experiences in our careers. I wish you well in your future endeavors." With Trevor's departure, the workplace atmosphere transformed. The tension that had permeated the production floor dissolved, replaced by renewed collaboration and open communication. The relationships with coworkers who had stood by me during the difficult weeks strengthened into a cohesive leadership team. Maria was promoted to Assistant Quality Control Director, helping me manage the expanding responsibilities of the department. Her attention to detail complemented my systems thinking, making us an effective partnership in maintaining and improving quality standards. "We make a good team," she remarked one afternoon as we reviewed the monthly quality metrics. "Your big picture vision and my obsession with details. That is why quality control needs multiple perspectives," I agreed. "No one person catches everything." The financial recovery following the crisis was gradual but steady. Within 2 months, production had returned to previous levels, and customer confidence began to rebuild as consistent quality was restored. The $3 million daily production value was no longer at risk, and new contracts actually began to come in as our reputation for reliability spread throughout the industry. At the 6-month mark, Richard called a follow-up meeting to review our progress. The metrics told a compelling story: quality issues had decreased by 72%. Production efficiency had actually improved despite the reinstated inspection protocols, and customer complaints had fallen to the lowest level in company history. "This is what real efficiency looks like," Richard observed, studying the charts. "Not cutting corners to save minutes, but building quality into the process to eliminate waste and rework." The experience had changed me professionally and personally. I had always taken pride in my work, but now I had a deeper confidence in standing up for what I knew to be right, even when faced with opposition from authority figures. The vindication had not made me arrogant, but it had reinforced the value of trusting my expertise. In an unexpected gesture that touched me deeply, Richard had my original checklist, the one he had rescued from the trash, professionally framed and hung in the main production area, with a plaque that read, "Quality is never an accident. It is always the result of intelligent effort." The daily reminder served both as recognition of past contributions and as inspiration for continuing improvement. One of my most satisfying responsibilities became training new quality control specialists. Unlike Trevor, I never dismissed fresh perspectives or innovative ideas, but I made sure every new team member understood the foundation of experience upon which our systems were built. "Always ask why a check exists before you consider eliminating it," I would tell them during orientation. Understanding the purpose behind the process is more important than the process itself. As I settled into my director role, I often reflected on the lessons of those turbulent weeks. The experience had taught me that preventing problems is often invisible work until something goes wrong. When quality systems function perfectly, they attract little attention or praise. It is only in their absence that their value becomes painfully obvious. The crisis had also reinforced the importance of documentation and persistence. Had I not maintained records of quality issues during Trevor's changes, the connection between his eliminated protocols and the resulting failures might never have been clearly established. Perhaps most importantly, I had learned that institutional knowledge and experience deserve respect, not dismissal. Trevor's mistake was not in wanting to modernize, but in failing to recognize the value in existing systems before attempting to replace them. True improvement builds upon foundations of proven success, rather than tearing them down for the sake of appearing innovative. Now, when I walk through the production floor and see operators confidently following the color-coded checklists, I feel a quiet satisfaction in creating systems that protect both the company and the customers who rely on our products. The clipboard that was once mockingly tossed in the trash has become a symbol of resilience and validation throughout the company. Have you ever stood your ground when you knew you were right, even when others dismissed your concerns? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more experiences from the manufacturing world. Share this video with anyone who has ever had their expertise undervalued or ignored. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that sometimes standing firm on quality and standards is not just about professional pride, but about protecting what truly matters in the work we do.